What's going on, everybody? I am excited for today's video. And listen, if you know what was coming up, you'd be excited too. Today's going to be a good video. It's going to be one that you're going to want to share, you know what? In faith, in faith, believing it's going to be a good one, that you're going to love it. Go ahead and hit that like button, comment, do all the things, subscribe, because this is going to be a good one. I'm excited. I got Luna with me, hanging out back here. This is our German Shepherd. She's my girl. I love her to death. We usually do everything together as far as when animals are allowed, especially German. She's got a little bit of an attitude, but don't tell her I said that. I got my white tea today. Listen, tea and coffee is my thing. I love this. I might start bringing you guys on the journey with me. I just got a ton of different types of teas. If you'd be curious and learning about the teas and stuff, I'm always drinking it, featuring it. I may start opening things up with just sharing about what I'm drinking in any particular video, because I love this stuff. But fresh cup of tea. And listen, today we are talking about a topic that is, in my opinion, one of the largest contributing factors to our society in a negative way. So what we're going to talk about today is our inability to grasp this concept is one of the leading contributing factors to marital breakdowns, family dysfunction, societal dysfunction, and breakdowns. It is a leading contributing factor in why we live lives with brokenness and void. It is the inhibitor, one of the greatest inhibitors to living life with a whole soul. I am almost willing to bet that by the end of this video, you're going to look at this, you're going to be able to examine your world, your life, and see, oh, I can apply this for near instant value to be added to my relationships, my world, and you'll be able to see why our society on a macro level is usually breaking down. It's usually pretty distraught. It's negative. All of those things. It's gonna make so much sense. Today, we're going to be talking about the difference between empathy, sympathy, and we're going to be talking about compassion, where all these, how they connect, the difference there, and it's going to be a powerful one. So let's dive into it. I really want to highlight, and the bulk of this is we're going to be watching a short little video by Brené Brown. I believe is how you pronounce your name. If you haven't heard of her before, well, today's your day. You're going to. So shout out to Brené Brown, and then shout out to the YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description to this video. Diane Simon, I cannot pronounce the last name. You'll have to please forgive me, the last word. But anyway, the link is in the description. This is going to be a good one. We're going to watch it. We may pause it once or twice, and then we're going to dive into it. You're going to love it. It's a great little video here. So let's just dive in.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth.
Now, pay careful attention to these 4 qualities. They're all incredibly powerful, and I don't have time today to dive into all 4 of them. But I think if you pause the video and stop and reflect on these 4 qualities, and you evaluate the degree to which they are active in your life and your relationships, you will come to some very helpful conclusions onto whether or not empathy is alive and well in your relationships, and to what degree that may be affecting, if there's an absence of empathy towards you or from you towards everyone else. It may help give some idea as to reasons that relationships are not flourishing to the degree in which you would want.
Out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice because
Yeah, I think that's a great distinction. And we've all experienced it and we've all done it, where we encounter someone that is hurting, and maybe we don't feel like they should be hurting. We're kind of like, hey, suck it up, tie up those bootstraps, wipe the dirt off your wound, get back out there. Some of us were raised in that kind of an environment. That's all we know. And there was there's not even sympathy in that. But the next layer where you do encounter the sympathy is at least there's just a recognition of your situation, but there's no connection. And the empathy goes all the way to connection, but there's something that should happen as a result of our empathy that is another choice we get to make that most of us never do. And that's what this video doesn't address that I'm super excited to get to. But I think that's a powerful distinction between sympathy and empathy. Let's keep going.
in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling.
That is powerful. And this is what scares so many people away from empathy. I can't tell you how many people I sit with in the counseling room where they are saying, I had a father who was present and provided, but not emotionally present. They were a hard worker. They were always providing. They were faithful. They were great in that regard, but there was no emotional connection. And that's because we all have this tendency to not want to dig within us and encounter something within us that can feel what another person is feeling. That's a very scary, vulnerable, and difficult place to go, but that is what empathy requires. Here's what I want to say before I press play. You can examine the relationships in your life that are not thriving and probably conclude with some degree of confidence that it is deficient in empathy. So what your marriage, your relationship with children, your relationship with friends, coworkers, whatever, you name it. Every relationship, for it to thrive, requires empathy, yet we starve the vast majority of our relationships of empathy because of this right here. We do not want to go inward and connect with something that the other person is feeling. Not thinking, not knowing, not experiencing, but feeling. It's very specific.
Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah.
So true.
And we do it all the time.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using
Rationalize.
We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart.
I know so many people. I'm sorry, I have to stop and say this regarding the miscarriage. I know so many people who have experienced the pain of a miscarriage. So many more people have experienced the pain of watching a loved one experience a miscarriage. Please do not try to silver line the situation. Please, if you encounter someone who vulnerably shares with you they've had a miscarriage, do not. The worst thing you can do is silver line the issue. And if that's happened to you, I just want to extend my condolences and say I know the pain of watching loved ones encounter such a painful circumstance and situation. And I am so sorry if you've been met with sympathy rather than empathy.
At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with
Men,
you that's
listen
very
up.
difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is,
That is such a powerful statement that, if I'm just being honest with you, I need to get better at that. I don't even know how to respond to that right now, but I'm just so glad you told me. That's powerful.
rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
That is powerful. Rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is a connection. This is powerful. Listen, all the dudes watching this video right now, and there are certainly plenty of ladies who can resonate with this. It seems to be more common with men. I know this is what I experience is when a loved one, whether it's my wife, children, friend, another family member, they're frustrated by something, they're burdened by something, upset, hurt, and they share it with me. My instinct, like the thing that I want to do unconsciously, like without even having to think, is to fix it. Whether that's to provide, whether that's to solve the problem, I want to help because my instinct is they're hurting because of this, so solve the problem and they won't hurt anymore. Very noble, not wrong at all, very rational, but it is not what is helpful and it is not what is needed. So if you're listening to this and this is you, whenever your spouse, wives hear this too just as much as men, because men need this too. That men do not need their wives to fix things for them either. But men especially, and I'm speaking to men, I am a man, I know this is more of a common man thing, but anyone who can resonate with this, I think it's applicable in anyone who has a relationship with another human being. So hear this. We don't need to fix the problem. What is being longed for? When I share a frustration, like if I come to my wife and I muster up the courage that it would require to express how she frustrated me or hurt me, what I don't need is for her to defend herself and try to explain to me why she did what she did so I would understand that there was a legitimate reason, because there usually is. Very rarely do we intentionally hurt each other. So if she makes me mad by doing something, there's probably a good reason why she did it, but that's not what I need right now. All I need is for her to hear me and feel what I must be feeling and say, man, I'm sorry I did that. I can totally put myself in your shoes and I'm really sorry. I'll try to be more aware of that moving forward. And then another time after a day or so has passed, and if she wants to come back around and say, hey, I've been thinking about what you said and I'm really sorry that hurt. Would you mind if I shared with you my rationale behind those actions that hurt you? Fair game. But here's the deal. We have got to be able to activate empathy, which means we go inward, we discover what a feeling, an emotion that our significant other can relate to, whether that's a family member, marital, like a spouse, whatever. And we feel that feeling with them. That is connection. That is what's desired. Sympathy is not desired. All right. And so much of us think we're doing good deeds when we do our little sympathy act where we're saying, oh, yeah, it's dark down there. Oh, that must be, hard. You're so strong. You keep going. I'm here for you. Just call me anytime. All of these things. That's not helpful. If someone was vulnerable and transparent and trusted you enough to kind of open their heart and they're met with sympathy, you're never going to have deep, fulfilling relationships in life with anybody, because what we all long for is that empathy. It is the ability to get down in the hole with someone and feel what they are feeling. Now, men, in marriage, not only, this is my conviction, not only are we called to get down and feel what our wives are feeling, but we're also to take what our wives are feeling and put it on our backs and take it to the Lord and let the Lord take what's on our backs. Okay, that's kind of the process of how it works. Father, like the Christ, the husband, the wife, and the way this works is our wives are distraught, they're upset. Maybe they're upset at a bill that comes in. And instead of you getting upset and angry and wanting to call whoever billed you and give them a piece of your mind, and then burdening your wife with frustration that's on her behalf, that's not helpful to her. The proper response is recognizing what she's feeling. She's not angry about the bill. You are. So don't bring that in. She's got anxiety. She's got fear. She's feeling a lack of security because of a financial situation. You need to tap into that and feel what she must be feeling so you can comfort her. And then you comfort her and take those fears and take that financial issue and you take it to the Lord. And you and the Lord discover the next steps, right? That's how we men are to strongly serve our wives in those ways. We're not there to try to fix it. We're there to feel, connect, and comfort, okay? And so I think that requires empathy. Now, here's where I want to go with empathy, sympathy, and compassion. We've discussed that a large contributing factor to every interpersonal relationship issue is probably that there's a deficiency in empathy involved. I would also go as far to say that societal collapse and breakdown is a lack of empathy, but more important, the lack of compassion. There was a buddy of mine talking to me one time and saying, sometimes I'm scared to allow myself to feel what others are feeling and to go there because then I don't know how I'll carry that emotion if I allow myself to feel it and go there. And so I wall myself up. And let me just say, not that this figure is this, but it just reminded me of something else. If you grew up in a home where either your mother or father didn't allow themselves to feel, and you grew up, so like I hear the story all the time where, my father was a strong provider. He was always there. He was loyal, worked really hard, but he was not there for me emotionally. He was very hard, numb, didn't feel much. Or maybe the the mother was that way. It is always the wrong answer to wall up. It may not always be the wrong answer to be empathetic and allow yourself to connect with someone. Okay, that there may need to be boundaries at certain times in life. So that's not what I'm saying. But if you get into a habit or a rhythm of walling up and not allowing yourself to process and deal with emotions, you will become someone you do not want to become. This buddy of mine was saying, sometimes I feel like this wall, I want to wall up because I don't want to deal with that. And so there's a whole host of things we could navigate there. Okay, so why, do we need to work on emotional IQ? Do we need to work on inner wounds? Do we need to work on, healing other relationships, things that trigger you, trauma? There could be a whole host of things that need to maybe be talked through. So we don't know the details of that situation, but what we do know is, hey, we need to figure out how we can, in a healthy way, process and allow ourselves to feel and process these emotions. And again, it may not always be appropriate to do that with someone. So that's a separate set of boundaries. However, if you get in the rhythm of allowing yourself to wall up, you will never be able to express compassion. If you're a follower of Christ or any type of human being with some sense of morality, but especially a follower or disciple of Christ, compassion is a big deal. And John writes in 1 John that if anyone who is in Christ sees a brother or sister in need and withholds compassion from them, the love of God is actually not even in them. And that's a big deal, a big claim with big consequences. Jesus, every miracle he worked came from a place of compassion. There's so many times throughout the Gospels we can see just before Jesus ministered to the multitudes, fed 5,000, and did any act of kindness for somebody, it came from a place of compassion. The writers explicitly say Jesus had compassion upon them and did X, Y, and Z. The only way you can get to compassion is through empathy. So if you allow yourselves to wall up and not feel what someone else is feeling, you have no hope of having compassion. Therefore, the love of God cannot be expressed through you. That's not good. We are called to love. I've talked about this extensively in so many videos. You can go back and watch a myriad of videos where I unpack love and the importance of that and how that is fleshed out. But what I'm here to say today is empathy. If you do not practice the muscle and the skill set of empathy, you can never have compassion. Therefore, you can never express the love of God towards others. Compassion is a choice you make. Notice in the text I referenced earlier where the Apostle John says, he who withholds compassion, the love of God does not abide in him, because you get to choose to either withhold it or you get to choose to extend it. You will never extend compassion with the right motives, the right heart posture, if you don't have empathy. So what do I mean by that? You can extend compassion, you could be generous, you could advocate for justice, you could provide for someone in need, but unless it comes from a place of empathy, in other words, you have allowed yourself to feel what they must be feeling, and that emotional connection is what drove you to advocate for justice, provide financially, just whatever the compassion would be in that context. You're doing it probably for a selfish reason. What can you get out of it? You're doing it to feel good about yourself. You're doing it because you know it's good to be generous. You're doing it because the Christian community you're in really pushes this type of thing and you're trying to be a good Christian. There's a whole host of reasons we can be compassionate, but I'm just here to tell you, if we're being compassionate for any other reason other than empathy, we're missing it because we've probably got some motive that benefits us or accomplishes something for us that's at the root of our compassion in any other method. If our compassion is driven from and derived from empathy, it will always result in love. And that is what the goal is. That is what we are looking for. But it only comes, I can just imagine Jesus sitting on the hill and when he says, they are like sheep without a shepherd. He put himself in their shoes. What would it feel like to be a sheep without a shepherd? The hopelessness. Like we are fully depending on God. Like that is a scary world to live in where you don't know where you're going to have your next meal, how you're going to keep warm if a winter storm comes through. You don't know how you're going to be safe if a hurricane comes through. You don't know how you're going to provide if you get sick. You don't know. Like what happens if your child gets sick and you can't afford the medical bills? And Jesus could put himself in that situation and connect with a feeling inside of himself that allowed him to connect with them. And from that place, compassion sprung up and he could advocate, he could heal, he could, do whatever the situation called for. That is what we're aiming for. And so I kind of want to land the plane here, but this is what we need to examine our life for. In what areas are we hurting? And you'll look in your life and you'll see the thing I'm actually looking for in my marriage and my relationships is empathy. I didn't have language for it, I didn't have vernacular for it, but the void in my heart is I don't experience empathy from other people. And that's what I'm crying out for. That's what my soul wants. And in your search to fill that void, you're doing all these crazy things. You're dependent on alcohol or drugs or shopping or food or gambling or a variety of other modalities, right? So you look, okay, what I need is empathy. Then you learn to first then be an empathetic person. So you examine, am I being empathetic to the people in my life? And you evaluate your relationships. You look back at circumstances that have happened recently and how you responded to other people in pain, and you decide, was that empathy or sympathy or just utter disregard and carelessness? And you're honest about those evaluations. And then you go and you commit to grow in empathy and let your empathy lead to compassion. That's the goal, because compassion and the love of God work hand in hand. And so we extend the love of God forth into the world. And that's how the world becomes on earth as in heaven, is through us being those co-laborers with God in the earth. And so hope this video has been informative for you. I hope you'll share it with someone else. I hope you'll smash that like button, comment, subscribe, turn on the bell notifications. Those things really help our channel a lot and get messages just like this to a wider audience. We're really hoping that YouTube will be kind to us and push these messages forth. But in the event that YouTube doesn't, hopefully we pray that you will and have found value in this and value enough to share it with someone. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we'll catch you next time. God bless you guys.